Hare Krishna, everyone. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Sri Prabhupada. I will start with the prayer. Om Agnyantana Timirasya Gnananjana Salakaya Chaksurmintam Yena Tasmai Sri Guru Deva Nama Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupam Kadamayam Tadadi Sa Padandikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Pada Kamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavamsya Sri Rupam Sad Tatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitamsya Jivam Sadadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Visakamitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesa Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrisabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpa Rupyasya Kripa Sindhu Bhavecha Patitanam Paunebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Narayanam Namaskrityam, Naram Cheva Narottamam, Devi Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jaya Udiryate, Nastaprayesu Abhadresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, Bhagavate Uttama Sloke, Bhaktir Bhavati Naistike. Hare Krishna, everyone. Let me share my screen. Hope everyone can see my screen. Okay, today I've been blessed to read from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 3, chapter number 25, sloka number 36. The description of this chapter is the glories of devotional service. And definitely, I was trying to prepare for this particular sloka as well as class in Sunday. And I have to accept that this particular, and not just this, but every particular sloka that I come across, I found it so much full of knowledge and of course guidance and instruction. And this one was definitely kind of bewildering to me, and I was not able to uh, uh, prepare exactly what I was thinking, because I was trying to look for a lot of search online, and found a lot of great classes from His Holiness Radha Swami Maharaj, Prabhupada, and several of Prabhupada disciple. And definitely I kept reading more and more about it, and instead of taking my notes. So definitely please forgive me if I make any mistakes. But one thing I realized, really hearing Prabhupada and a lot of other sannyasis and brahmacharis who are giving talk on this class, was that definitely I'm nothing more than rascal so far still, even after being connected with the Krishna conscious process for 9 years, or maybe even more now. Actually, it's more than 9. It's 2009 when I first joined, so it's more than 9 years, 15 years. I still don't know much, so I'll try my best to share what I realize and what I learned. But please forgive me. That being said, we'll start reading with the sloka. Darsanya avyavir udra vilasa risi kista vama suktaha hita mano hita pranamasya bhaktir achinto megati avnim prayakyate. Teha, by those forms, darsanya, charming, au yavhya, whose limbs, udara, udara, exalted, vilasa, pastime, asa, smiling, iksta, glances, vama, pleasing, suktiha, whose delightful word, rita, captivated, atmanaha, their minds, hita, captivated, pranaha, their senses, cha, and bhakti, devotional service, achintaha, unwilling, me, my, katim, abode, avim, subtle, parengte, secures, Translation by His Divine Grace Bhakti Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Upon seeing the charming form of the Lord, smiling and attractive, and hearing his pleasing words, the pure devotee almost loses all other consciousness. His senses are freed from all other engagement, and he becomes absorbed in devotional service. Thus, in spite of his unwillingness, he attains liberation without separate endeavor. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. Let me sing. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. There are three divisions of devotees: first class, second class, and third class. Even the third class devotee are liberated souls. It is explained in this verse that although they do not have knowledge, simply by seeing the beautiful decoration of the deity in the temple, the devotee become absorbed in thoughts of him and lose all other consciousness. Simply by fixing oneself in Krishna consciousness, engaging the senses in the service of Lord, one is imperceptibly liberated. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Simply by discharging uncontaminated devotional service as prescribed in the scriptures, one become equal to Brahman. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that Brahman Huyaya Kalpate. This means that the living entity in his original state is Brahman because he is part and parcel of the Supreme Brahman. But simply because of his forgetfulness of his real nature as an eternal savior of the Lord, he is overwhelmed and captured by Maya. This forgetfulness of his real constitutional position is Maya. Otherwise, he is eternally Brahman. When one is trained to become conscious of his position, he understands that he is a savior of the Lord. Brahman refers to the state of self-realization. Even the third class devotee who is not advanced in the knowledge of the absolute truth, but simply offer obeisances with great devotion, thinks of Lord, sees the Lord in the temple and brings forth flower and fruits to offer to the deity, becomes imperceptibly liberated. Sadhya Yan Vintaha. With great devotion, the devotee offer worshipful respect and paraphernalia to the deity. The deity of Radha and Krishna, Lakshmi and Narayan, and Ram and Sita are very attractive to devotees. So much so that when they see the statue decorated in the temple of the Lord, they become fully absorbed in thought of the Lord. That is the state of liberation. In other words, it is confirmed herewith that even a third class devotee is in the transcendental position, above those who are trying for the liberation by speculation or by other methods. Even the great impersonalists like Sukadeva Goswami and the four Kumaras were attracted by the beauty of deity in the temple, by the decoration and by the aroma of tulsi offered to the Lord, and they became devotee. Even though they were in the liberated state, instead of remaining impersonalists, they were attracted by the beauty of the Lord and became devotee. Here the word vilasa is very important. Vilasa refers to activities or pastime of Lord. This is prescribed duty in the temple worship that not only should one visit the temple to see the deity nicely decorated, but at the same time he should hear the recitation of Bhagavad Gita, or similar literature, which is regularly recited in the temple. It is the system in Vrindavan that in every temple there is recitation of Shastras. Even third class devotees who have no literary knowledge or no time to read Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita get the opportunity to hear about the pastime of the Lord. In this way, their minds may remain always absorbed in the thought of the Lord. His form, his activities, his transcendental nature. This state of Krishna consciousness is a liberated state. Lord Chaitanya therefore recommends 5 important processes in discharge of devotional service. 1. To chant the holy name of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Second is to associate with the devotee and serve as far as possible. Third, to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. Four, to see the decorated temple and deity. And if possible, 5 is to live in a place like Vrindavan or Mathura. These 5 items alone can help a devotee achieve the highest perfection. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita and here in Srimad Bhagavatam. The third class devotee can also imperceptibly achieve liberation is accepted in all Vedic scriptures. Hare Krishna, everyone. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna devotee, as I was telling earlier, to me this verse, and not just this, but every time I have given any verse to pick it, I find it a very interesting coincidence that this has something to do with my either thought process or uh, my life in some way. But as I was saying earlier, this particular verse and the translation and what I was hearing from Srila Prabhupada and Vishwanath Swami Maharaj as well as many other devotees was so much to learn and so much to just understand just from this one verse that I myself got too much carried away and definitely was not able to write down my notes. So I'm going to try to make this more an interactive session. So please forgive me if I ask you guys question. And this is just to clarify my personal realization of this particular verse and the translation and the lecture I have heard from it. Here, Prabhupada's talk about a lot of different things, starting from deity worship, and of course about all the 3 types of devotees, as well as bhakti process and what it is. So I will start with some simple questions for clarifying my understanding. So please forgive me if I'm asking questions. But what is bhakti? What is bhakti based on your understanding in simple way? And anybody can answer this. Again, I'm trying to clarify my own doubts what I think of bhakti is. But
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare
Please
Krishna,
accept
Sridhar.
my humble obeisances.
Please accept mine as well.
Yeah. Bhakti is engaging our senses in the devotional service of the Lord. So, by definition, Narada Bhakti Sutra, it says, Sarvopati Vinirmuktam Tatparatvena Nirmalam Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchyate. That's I mean, Narada Muni's definition of bhakti. And so, Sarvopati Vinirmuktam means forgetting all our designations. That is, that is to remember our real identity. That is, we are servant of the Lord. And Jivera Swarupa Hai Nitya Krishna Raditya Dasa. So in that capacity, if you offer all your senses in the service of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I will stop here. Thank you very much.
Very nice, Malaji. And again, I have heard all this what you said many times, but it never clicked to me, until I read this verse and the lecture by Srila Prabhupada, and he said it in a very nice and simple way. And like you said yourself, bhakti is basically engaging your mind and senses in the service of Krishna, and even though I kept hearing all this thing for many, many years, and it still never clicked that is what simple as bhakti, and I was trying to look bhakti in so many different ways, Again, that's a simple definition, but you are right there on, yes. And then the second question is how how can you initiate the bhakti process? How can you initiate the bhakti process, or start working, or start working by yourself to attain bhakti? Again, my question, as you can see, it's confusing, but basically, how can we start? Well, how can one start into bhakti movement or Krishna conscious movement?
One can start by the hearing process, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Process of
Yes.
hearing.
Yeah, and this is what I heard from Prabhupada's lecture, that yeah, hearing is very important, and only person will only hear if they have faith. And I was hearing to one of the brahmachari, and they were explaining that our faith are at multiple levels. Of course, to have a faith, and then to have blind faith, and to have a full faith. And definitely, I started my process in bhakti as a blind faith, and it is definitely nothing more than fanatism. Definitely that I realize now. But yes, that is very important. Is by hearing, is when you are faithful and you can hear, uh, or by reading. It is one way that you can only without having a faith. It's very difficult to start in a bhakti process. And after that, of course, you start with the neophyte devotee, and then you slowly grow into Madhyama Adhikari and Uttama Adhikari. And Prabhupada in his class explains that neophyte are one who thinks they are the devotee, and every rest are not non-devotee. What they do is right, and everybody else does is not right. And that's where stage I am at right now, or maybe even worse than that. And then Madhyama Adhikari are people who know who is Bhagwan, who are devotees, who are not devotees, and the Uttamadhikari are the devotees who thinks that everybody else is a devotee and I am not the devotee. And Prabhupada was explaining that Uttamadhikari typically they are not too much uh, publicly engaged in preaching and things like that. So in order for them to start preaching, they have to come to the level of Madhyamadhikari, and I think that's what I also heard, that Prabhupada has to do that from coming from advanced stage. He had to come down to Madhyamadhikari's stage to preach the movement, to give us all the benefit. He did that. Otherwise, he could have definitely stayed in Vrindavan and did his bhakti very nicely. But he was so merciful, so compassionate, that he wanted to give the message and the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and to rest of the world. So that's why I feel so blessed to be connected with this moment, and I wish I can do a little bit to serve Prabhupada at that level. Then that's one. And then how can other question I had what I was going through is, how can one become a bhakta, or how to become a devotee? If you are a neophyte, how to become a devotee? And reason I'm
Oh,
asking this question is definitely I'm like I said, I myself need to learn as well. But then when I'm working with a lot of other people, whether at temple or outside temple, I time to time get asked this question, and definitely I refer them to more learned person than myself. Uh, but sometimes they find me strange and they question me as well. That, Prabhu, you are in this for so long, how come you don't know? Means these are all good friends of mine, so we have good discussion time to time.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Mine as well,
Well, I
Mataji.
think by, like you said, faith and hearing are the basics, and then being in association with the devotees. You come across, a devotee who inspires you, encourages you, and then gradually you kind of hopefully make progress in the path of bhakti.
Yeah, no, you said it, Mataji, very nicely, simple way. And I was very surprised when I read the last sentence in this particular purport. Where it is said here. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu so beautifully explained the five important process of is basically is definitely you start again, they're not in a particular order, when Prabhupada was explaining this, he was saying that you start with first is deity darshan. You start with the darshan first. Most people start the process by doing a darshan of the temple deity. And he was explaining, him and other speaker I was listening to, explaining that deity worship is very, very important. People, if we don't do deity worship properly, then people may regard as ideal worship. And that is, in some of the classes I was hearing, they were talking about difference between the deity worship and ideal worship. Deity worship is done when you believe that a god is a person. Otherwise, it's if you don't believe god is a person, then it's very difficult to understand the deity worship process. And Prabhupada was saying that the importance of deity worship, it has to be done very strictly, following all the rules and principle of deity worship. Otherwise, people may not take it seriously, and also people may not believe in it and may not able to connect to it. He was saying that you start darshan first by looking at the lotus feet of Krishna. And of course, every time I used to go to temple, that I will always look at Krishna's face, or any deity face. I never was thought of looking at the lotus feet first, and then say slowly you look at his legs, his thigh, his belly, his chest, his hand, different dressing and jewelry he's wearing, his flute, his lips, his face. Finally, and that's what the verses translation talks about. You upon seeing the charming form of Lord, smiling and attractive, and hearing his pleasing words, like Prema, you were saying, it's by hearing. But here it's also very well said. I was surprised. It says that neophyte deities are by itself looking at the deity. They are basically related. They are imperceptibly liberated souls. And at one other place, it says that they are already at the position of uh, transcendental level in one way, not as one devotee, but just to come to temple and take a darshan is what helps you. And even the last sentence here says, whether you have coming to temple willinglessly or unwillinglessly, he attains the liberation without separate endeavor. So the bhakti process to me starts by first, of course, you having a faith and coming to temple, whether it's a blind faith or faith or full faith. You come because you have some faith, and you take a darshan, and then of course you hear about you chant, and I think it says here very nicely that you, of course, you chant the Mahamantra or Lord's name, and you associate with devotee and serve them. You hear Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita like scriptures, and of course, the darshan is mentioned. You see the decorated temple and the deity, if possible. And then fifth place is you live in places like Vrindavan, Mathura. And I was listening to Prabhupada class, and where he also here he talks about living in places like Vrindavan and Mathura, and at some class he also mentioned that uh, that this Vrindavan and Mathura, of course, they are a very holy place, and definitely we it's good to stay there, but it is not meant for everybody to live there in the Vrindavan. Because if you are not pure devotee or advanced devotee and your consciousness is not purified, you can do so many aparadh in the dham that instead of helping your bhakti process, it may affect your bhakti process in a negative way. So he's saying that staying, of course, in association of devotee and serving in the temple in different capacity is also kind of living. You are living in a state of Vrindavan or Mathura. So those are some of the things I'm learning. And other place I was hearing about Hoisula Swami telling about ideal worship and in deity worship, where Prabhupada in one of his lectures he mentioned that there was a big statue of one of the famous politician in Calcutta, and definitely that's a statue, and it's considered he was referring as an ideal worship, that it was worshipped by pigeon every day. Pigeon were dropping, they're doing the droppings on the statue every day, and that's how the statue was worshipped. And definitely once a year when his birthday comes, they'll do all kind of cleaning and brush the statue and make it nice and paint it. Uh, and that is how the ideal worshipper will worship the idol. But our deity worship process is very, very different and strict, and it needs to be followed at every time in order to because Krishna is in form, is his name. So every time we are doing those processes, you have to be very serious. Otherwise, people can take it as an idol worship. Uh, and then at one place, I was hearing about a temple or prime minister and president of different countries. On their place of residence or in their security or in their transportation. Uh, every country spend millions of dollars and crores of rupees to just to make sure the prime minister or president is taken care of. And here Krishna is considered not just the prime minister of this universe, but many many millions of the universe and the entire creation. So reason I just stuck with me is because I'm in fundraising team, and I hear sometime I hear comments from either friends or people that why we are spending so much money on our temple and different things and things like that. And of course I'll give my own version of my understanding, but here I found a good explanation where this deity worship and the temple is nothing but the palace of the supreme prime minister, the supreme president of this whole creation. So no much how much money we spend on his beautification, his security, or whatever you want to name it, so many things is nothing. It is nothing compared to what we do materially. And there were uh, so many things. Another question, last question I had is when to start the bhakti process. Of course, we hear that you start as soon as possible, and this is more for I'm asking this question is so that how can I engage and sorry, I'm losing track of time, almost 8. Okay, we'll stop. But this last question, so the reason I'm just asking this question is because I have two beautiful son, and definitely I want to guide them in a proper way. Of course, my parents guided me in a nice way, and I don't think I'm doing as good of a job of guiding them in the Krishna process. So if anybody can enlighten me or share your realization on when to engage our children in the Krishna consciousness, that will be very helpful to me.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes.
Uh, I don't want to take anybody else's opportunity to speak, but this is very easy. I mean, they have started at the right age. They were probably even less than 5 when they started. I know your kids. And then, anyway, Prahlad Maharaj says, Kaumaram acharet pratnyo dharman bhagavata durlapa manava janma tadapyatruvam arthadam. That is, it's better to start at very young age. Kamara means 5 years old, around there, I think. And then this Bhagavata Dharma, which is like, growing up in the temple atmosphere as your kids, doing everything kids can do. And then, even though this human life is meaningless, it can be made meaningful by practicing, starting at that's only bhakti makes human existence and achieving the goal of life. So better to start at this very young age, and your kids are properly there, in there. Thank you. I remember that words, Prahlad's statements. Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj. No, very yes, thank you. And the reason I was asking that because I was myself confused. I was thinking, and this is going on for last couple of months in my mind that how much I need to either put a force or pressure on this, right? And every time I think that it is so difficult for me to understand the bhakti process, even after almost 48, 49 now. And even then, engaging Krishna consciousness is 2009, and still I don't know almost nothing. I don't know anything about bhakti. Every time I hear or read about from someone or in the book, I find it so much learning. And I said, how will their mind be able to understand it? If I try to force on them as too early age or too soon. But But thank you for guys telling me that is earlier the better, sooner the better. So thank you very much for your time. Sorry, as I said, I was reading so much and was not able to put my notes together to say something. But this sloka, as any other sloka, I personally feel even one sloka from Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita is good enough to make you start on your devotional journey process. You know, as long as you hear from the right person and you read books, scripture written by the right, purified, pure devotees. Otherwise, definitely, I have read Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam many times in my childhood and never able to get the realization that I'm getting now every time I read it. So once again, thank you everyone, and please pray for me as well. I am not at all qualified to give any class or anything. Nothing I do is good in terms of reading or reciting slokas or things like that. So please forgive me. But thank you for paying me and thank you for tolerating me during these classes. I greatly appreciate it. With that, we'll end this class and with a prayer. Om Agniyanadvisya Gnananjana Salakaya Chakshurudhamena Tasmai Sri Gurudev Namah. Kanthara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Thank you, devotees. Hare Krishna. You all have a blessed and Krishna conscious day.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.